Hi again. You know the drill at this point if you're here for some reason. I watched Hop and Brass Facts Nut and Fancy retrospectives. I thought Brass Facts was pretty civil with his. I think of the two, it's the better video because Hop, as usual, harkening back to his AVGN ripoff days, is a very hostile presenter whenever it comes up to topics of differing opinion, tactics, doctrine, whatever. And both of them claim to be followers of Nut and Fancy's example, being budget-minded when it's applicable, open-minded to the pros and cons of things like being weight conscious, being more interested in accuracy and recoil control. Maybe a gun needs to be heavier to absorb recoil or be more durable or absorb heat from extended use, etc. and so on. And I disagree with them on that because I don't actually think they're following what they claim to follow from Nut and Fancy's handbook. I'll use Hop's video for an example. Hop made a comment about, well, if a reviewer is really zoned in and has their blinders on and they're really into one specific lane, let's say concealed carry pistols, they might review a duty or combat pistol and say it's a bad gun because it wouldn't be a great fit for concealed carry use. Hop, your channel for years at this point has been completely and solely focused on night vision rifle builds. You think specific guns are bad because you can't mount a PEC and 27 different fucking cables and a flashlight to them, or your preferred optics stack because you're not smart enough to figure out how people did it 20 years ago and then just emulate that if you're going to use an outdated platform, as you would say. So, like, are you actually following Nut and Fancy's dogma if you're not following Nut and Fancy's dogma? Like, you're all about not wasting people's time, but what were the AK videos? You both reviewed terrible PSA AKs. You both fundamentally misunderstood how to do an optics setup or handguard setup on an AK. Like, you could probably watch an AK operator's union video with Rob Ski and get a better vague general understanding or regular guy training, because he runs a lot of AKs. He's got that Mac 90 rebuilt twice and beat to death and Dracos. Like, were your videos really adding to the conversation? Not really. I think M26 Lemon Grenade, if you're going to do PSA trash builds, is probably a better wealth of information than either of you. So if you're all about being open-minded, those videos weren't open-minded. If you're all about practicality, because you talk about first and second cool, but both of you almost entirely pretend like everything you do is first line practical cool and not just something you're doing for fun because you have the money to throw around, then what's the point of the videos? Like, that entire thing was a waste of ammunition and budget. You could have reviewed something you actually found practical, like maybe there's a new 5.56 gun that's interesting, or new AR parts, because that's your wheelhouse. That's what you focus on. Like, are you really following Nut and Fancy isms, ideas, if you're not following them? You're not practicing what you supposedly preach. Like, the whole prepared citizen thing, I find a little goofy and laughable. Like, you're trying, for example, Brass Facts. I always bring this up because it drives me up a wall. The $7,000 AR belt-fed upper. There is no practical situation where you're ever either going to A, legally get away with using that, or B, have it be superior to, let's say, whatever a defunct, destroyed National Guard outpost might have. Like, you broke an FRT running it, right? At Moon's Out or whatever. I wouldn't trust that in the field. And if you put a mil-spec trigger in it, semi-auto trigger in it, then it's useless. It's just a heavier AR with a drum mag. It's completely impractical. And I get that you're reviewing it just to survey the product and see where the market's at, but you make a video on something, it gives people ideas, and then they say, well, that's cool, I'll go buy that. And then we have a bunch of people running auto rifles, gee, shocker, and none of them have a realistically practical firearm. They have a gun that's great for spraying shit down, and it might weigh like a pig because they're trying to turn an AR into a Colt LMG or an RPK. And like, you just get lost in the weeds on things like that. Like the SMG videos, the PDW videos. 99% of people are not going to be in a situation where they can, 1, legally get away with using an SMG in combat, 2, have a practical way of carrying it where they don't appear to be a nut job and get killed by their local SWAT team or jailed for, this guy had an assault rifle on him, even if the gun is totally legal. Because police officers don't actually understand their city, their state, their district's firearms law. They just see something scary and they draw on you because that's what they're trained to do. They're an oppositional force and we are their opponents. Doctrinally, whether they individually believe that or not, that's how they're trained. So you have to be as non-threatening as possible. So what would an actual carry gun be? Your regular concealed carry pistol of whatever make and model you choose, whether it's got a dot or red dot on it, flashlight, and probably not a suppressor because you're just getting into the weeds at that point. It's getting longer, it's getting more cumbersome. The jury on your self-defense shooting case, you're going to question why you had a gun set up like the United Healthcare shooting, things like of that nature. So like, you claim to be making these videos objectively, practically, and on things that are just enjoyable. Maybe the enjoyable thing is true, but you always seem to focus, and your comment section always seems to focus on the whole idea that all of this stuff is equally practical, maybe, or like it's all serious use because you spent a lot of scratch on it. When 99% of people realistically are never going to fire a shot in anger, never going to use their 20 grand worth of combat gear offensively, and probably would be just fine with an $800 AR and a Glock with no thrills, iron sights only on both. Like, I think a real, actual modern day nut and fancy would just be a guy running whatever mid-grade AR brand he wants, iron sights, and talking about like mid-distance urban shooting. Like, if you live on rural land and you've actually got wide open sight lines, or you live in the desert, that's all fine and good. Train for that. But so many of these people are like thinking they're going to be carrying 100-pound fucking backpacks and do room clearing and all the stuff special forces do, when most of us are going to be dead in a week if the world actually ends. Like, do you really need $90,000 worth of combat gear if we're all going to be chum within a month of the world ending? Or, you know, counterpoint to that, both Hop and Brass Facts don't believe that the world will ever actually truly end apocalyptically like so many people doomsday prep for. So what's the point of all of the equipment if you don't think the world's ever going to end? You're never going to use it. What's the point? Like this hyperposition thing of you train like the world's going to end, but you don't think the world's going to end. Then is anything you're actually doing budget and constraint minded? Are you actually, to quote your nut and fancyism, living your best life and living within your means if you're convincing all of these people that they have to have this or they're not serious? They have to have this $4,000 AR or they're not practical, they're not serious, they're a LARPer, they're a joker, they're a shit poster, they're somebody like me who just doesn't give a fuck and is not serious, not a serious prepared citizen, yada yada yada, because you've developed a community that thinks like that. Are you actually practicing what Nut and Fancy supposedly preaches? Like, if you guys were just honest about it and like, yeah, we got a little bit of money and we like doing what we like to do. We're night vision guys. We're dabbling in belt feed. We like small unit special ops style tactics. That's our squeeze. That's our lemon cake. That's what we like to eat. That's like what we like to do. I wouldn't care. But you have this veneer of doing the everyman thing, and you're not doing the everyman thing, dude. Like, nothing fancy is. I'll give the old timer a pass because he's old, he's set in his ways, and it's just how people are. Like, you guys are supposedly young and informed and in the know, and you've got your hand on the pulse of the market and the culture, and like, the culture is no different from the things that Nothing Fancy supposedly opposed in the early 2000s. It's like, instead of pretending that we're Marines dirt kicking in Iraq, now we're pretending to be Delta Force or Navy SEALs attacking Venezuela, or some battalion in Ukraine. Like, 99% of the market has not heeded Nothing Fancy's policy or warnings, if you will. And I don't think you guys have either. I'm not saying I'm a paragon of practicality. Most of my shit is hokey. But, like, in the grand scheme of things, I've probably spent less money on a lot of this stuff than most people. And given what civilians would actually get up to, I'm probably going to be on equal footing with most of these guys that have spent too much money and probably not drilled and manipulated their rifle enough. Like, I don't get to go to the range much anymore. My life's a mess. But I probably drill a little bit more than most of these guys that just go out, buy a BCM, and then never touch it after putting everything your Discord tells an upcoming member to put on their gun. Just food for thought. I know I took the bait, as Hop would say, but kind of irking me. At least I didn't leave a comment, right? Ta-ta.